Nope. There we go. All right. So today we're going to talk about Essay 2, which is actually just a revision of Essay 1. The reason I always do this for pretty much any of my composition classes is because so many people never actually take the time to revise their work before submitting it, much less, unless you're forced to do it. And it really is such a vital, important aspect of college writing. Because you can only do so many things correctly on kind of a first go around. And I know it's really easy for students to just kind of wait till, right up on a deadline, hammer out a, 3-4 page essay and turn it in and say, well, good enough for me. But as the essays become, again, like I keep saying, more complicated, as the topics become a little more difficult to handle, paragraphs aren't as easy to develop because you need to use a lot more information that just isn't inside of your own head. Revision really makes the process easier. And once you kind of understand how all these different parts of the writing process fit together, it will make all your writing and all your other courses so much easier. So not just in your English courses, anytime you have to write a paper for any other class, all these techniques will also serve you very well in those. So just to kind of start, I'm just going to show you the schedule. And I put the schedule here, the course schedule, the usual place. And I also put it somewhere else to hopefully make it a little bit easier to keep track of when things are due. So today we're just going to talk about the Essay 2 instructions, which are just revision. We'll go through the first few readings about the revision process. And then the first assignment you're going to have due is Wednesday morning. You're going to do what's called a reverse outline. I'm going to talk about what that is today. And these are really, really beneficial to see if you're doing what you think you're doing, or if there are spots where you need to develop things better. If there are things that you thought you were writing about and it turns out you actually weren't, which does happen because a lot of times you start a paragraph one way and it just kind of gets away from you. It happens. And revision is where you can fix those kinds of things. But if you go to Blackboard and click on Learning Modules, Module 2 popped up, I think this morning, I think it opened up. And here I put an overview, and this is the kind of thing I usually do for my wholly online classes. And I think it'll work well for this module, so I did it for this one as well. At the top here, these are just all the different things that we're going to be covering today and in Wednesday's class. So there's an overview about revision. There's revision stage 1, idea, structure, purpose, and audience. Revision stage 2, idea development, and then revision stage 3, the little things, sentences, words, the formatting, all those types of things. Then there's revising for style, and then there's a video about how to revise a college essay. This one, it is a pretty good video, and if you need extra help, I would definitely watch this at least once. But most of the stuff they talk about in this video, we're going to cover with all of these things anyway. So then we have a little list of assignments here. So as I said before, on Wednesday, you're going to turn in a reverse outline. On Thursday, and I put Thursday here, and then I forgot that Thursday is technically a holiday. So if you can turn it in Thursday, great. If you can't turn it in until Friday morning, that's fine too. So don't freak out about this. I just completely blanked that it's Veterans Day on Thursday. So Thursday's assignment is going to be a revised body paragraph, but we'll talk some more about that on Wednesday. And then next Monday, you're actually going to submit your Essay 2, which is just the revision of Essay 1. If you look down below here, here's the Essay 2 content. Again, it's just a link to a Wakelet that has all of these readings and videos in them. And then the assignments are just below it. So the reverse outline, the revised body paragraph, and then the Essay 2 submission. So instead of having a bunch of separate folders for content and for assignments, I just put it on this one page because there's not a whole lot of individual ones. So I think it'll make it a little bit easier, at least for this module. So if we look at the Essay 2 content Wakelet, and this is all just about revision. Little reminder that Essay 2 is a full revision of your Essay 1. And I keep saying this, and I'm going to say it a lot today. I'm going to say it a lot on Wednesday. Because almost every single semester I have a student submit a completely different essay for Essay 2. You're going to use the exact same topic. Your Essay 1 is entirely the basis for Essay 2. You're just going to revise it, right? You're going to make it better. You're going to improve it in a number of different ways. And so we have the revision overview. And this is really simply an overview about revision, about what revising is. But all these are really, really important ones. And we're going to go into more detail in each one of these. So the first one says, is the thesis clearly identifiable? And if I read an introduction to an essay and I'm still not sure what the thesis is, that's a huge problem, right? It should be very easy for me to read just the introduction paragraph and then accurately guess what this paper is going to be about. I should very clearly know what the main idea is. If it's arguable, I should really understand what argument it is that they're making. Does it have a clear topic and an angle or an argument? And is it appropriate for the writing's purpose and audience? And so these ones sound really confusing, but they shouldn't be. So if you think about whatever your thesis statement is, you want to make sure that that is your purpose, that you're fulfilling that promise to the reader that your essay is actually about what your thesis statement is, right? And then a little bit further in for the body paragraphs. Are the topic sentences clearly identifiable? Again, the general rule is that you would put the topic sentence as your first sentence or first few sentences in the body paragraphs. That is not a hard, concrete, steadfast rule. It is possible to have the topic sentence come at the end of the paragraph, but it typically leads to weaker writing. So I always recommend to always begin your body paragraphs with the topic sentence. And it should be very clear. Just like the thesis, a blind reader should be able to come into your essay, read just your topic sentence, and have a really good guess about what that main point of that paragraph is going to be, right? If I read a topic sentence and I say, oh, this paragraph is going to be about this, and then I read the paragraph and I say, well, that's not what the paragraph was really about, then your topic sentence isn't really doing what it says it's going to do, right? So to make sure that it is clearly identifiable and that it's doing the work it's supposed to be doing. And then does each unit of support have a topic sentence? So unit of support, I don't like the term, but you want to think about for every time you have an example that's supposed to support something, make sure it's clear in the sentence before then that you tell them what that thing you're about to support is, right? You wouldn't just say Pomeranian out of nowhere because I've given you no topic. If I say, oh, what's a dog that I looked at recently? A Pomeranian. Oh, okay. Now I know why you randomly said the word Pomeranian. Now it makes sense, right? But without the context of that unit of support for a topic sentence, it doesn't make any sense. So always make sure that when you use details for support, whether it be an example, an outside quote, or whatever it is that you're using for support, that you set up that support, that it's clear that you say, I am talking about this. You wouldn't use that language, but you want to make sure that you establish what you're talking about. And then the support's going to make sense. Any kind of details will make sense because it's really easy for the writer to kind of skip that step because in your head, all of it makes sense. All of it fits together. It has a logical flow. But remember, the reader doesn't have access to your brain. So you have to make sure to kind of walk them through each of those parts. And then does each topic sentence have a clear topic and angle that relates to and extracts idea from the thesis angle? So again, you could have an amazing paragraph with a great topic sentence and great support throughout the body paragraph. But if that topic sentence and that body paragraph don't actually support the thesis statement, then it's not a good body paragraph, right? So make sure checking on each individual topic sentence to ensure that they are actually supporting your main idea, your thesis statement. And then organization can be a little tougher depending on what you're actually writing about. But you want to make sure that everything you write about is logically organized, both within the paragraph and then the order of the paragraphs. So you want to think about a reader who doesn't know all the stuff that you know about the topic that you're writing about. Are you really giving them enough information to where they can easily follow along what you're talking about? Right? Or are you jumping back and forth from different ideas or back and forth throughout different time periods or something like that? That can be really confusing to a reader who isn't you. So thinking about how best to organize all the internal support and then stepping back and looking at it a little bit broader, how best to organize your paragraphs, right? And then again, are they logically organized and do they support your thesis statement? Then a little bit deeper, and this is where a lot of the revision work comes into play. Are the paragraphs and units of support fully developed with details, examples, and support relevant and appropriate to your purpose and thesis, right? So a lot of times you can have a great thesis statement. You can have a great topic sentence for body paragraph, but then you're kind of weak here, right? What more specific details could you include that would help the reader understand that main point in that paragraph? Do you need more examples to make sure it's really clear that they understand what it is you're trying to tell them, right? Is it supporting the topic sentence? Everything in that body paragraph should be supporting the topic sentence. And by default, if everything in that body paragraph is supporting the topic sentence and the topic sentence supports the thesis, then that body paragraph will support the thesis. If one of those three parts is off, you got some work to do, right? And then finally, what most people think of as revision is really just proofreading. Is language use and sentence structure clear, varied, and correct? So when you go through and you fix, your grammar, you fix your spelling, you fix any little problem at the sentence level or at the word level, that's just proofreading. That's actually the final part of the revision process. All of this stuff that came before it, this is the important stuff, right? If you have a few, spelling errors or a few grammatical errors, a few run-on sentences or fragments, it's not the end of the world. But if all of this doesn't fit together and doesn't do what your paper is supposed to be doing, it doesn't matter how perfect you are at the sentence level, right? Even if there is not a single spelling error, not a single grammatical error, if you don't do any of this stuff, it's a terrible paper, right? There's no point to that. So we like to focus on this first because it's the easiest thing to do. You can go through Word and make sure there's no squiggly lines underneath things and just right click and fix all those types of things. And you say, yay, I revised my essay. No, you didn't. You proofread your essay, which is just one little bitty part of the revision process. Excuse me. Any questions right now before we go deeper into these? All right, I'll keep going. And so I like this image because it's a really good way to think of what I was just saying. So you think about the big stuff to the middle stuff to the small stuff, right? The purpose, the audience, the thesis, the topic sentences, and the organization. These are the most important parts. That's why it's the biggest part of the triangle, right? And then developing your ideas, right? How well are you including good support, good examples, good specific details? That's also really important, but not as important as the big stuff. And then of least importance is that small sentence and word level things, fixing your spelling and your grammar errors. So important, but not the biggest part of revision, right? Actually, the smallest part of revision. So if you can remember the revision process in terms of this triangle, you'll probably have a much better approach to revision than if you just do what you've always done, which is just fix these little things here at the bottom of the triangle, right? So I kind of keep that visual in your mind there. So again, that was just the revision overview. There's a little bit more information on it, but it's mostly covered throughout the rest of these. So if you look at the next ones, we have stage 1, which is the idea, structure, purpose, and audience. Stage 2, idea development. And then stage 3, sentences, words, and format. And you look stage 1, 2, and 3. Oh, it looks just like this: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. And this is the exact order you should do revision, right? For any kind of paper again. So if we look at stage 1, it's all the big ticket stuff. And a lot of people don't do this one because it's the most difficult to do, which means it's the one you should spend the most amount of time on, right? We just don't like to do hard work. We'll try not to do it if we can get away with it, right? So if you look at these ones, it's similar questions here as from the overview. As a reader, can I clearly identify a thesis and topic sentences, right? So it's easiest if you could do this like a peer review. If you could have someone that isn't you read your essay. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be someone you work with, anybody who's not you would actually be the most useful help in terms of revision, because you have written the paper, you've done all this pre-writing for that essay. So you know what the stuff you want to put in the essay backwards and forwards, right? So it's actually hard for you to kind of take a step back. And that's why probably every single one of your teachers throughout your entire education has said, well, write the draft and then put it away for a couple of days and don't think about it, don't look at it. Because why we say that is we're trying to get all these things that were in your head that you put on the page out of your head. We're trying to kind of get a blank slate in your head. So when you go back and you reread your essay, it's not so close to you. You actually have to read through it and say, oh yeah, I clearly have a good thesis. I clearly have good topic sentences, right? But if you're too close to the material, if you just finished writing it, you're going to say, of course I do. I have a very good thesis. I have very clear topic sentences. Of course I do, because you just wrote them, right? You wouldn't have written them if at the time you didn't think they were good thesis and topic sentences, right? So it is best you can take a few days away. One of the reasons I always make the second essay a revision is because it kind of forces you to put it away for a little bit of time, right? Do I actually have a thesis with a topic and an angle or an argument or an assertion about that topic? And this is why I had you do that thesis exercise. Just practice to make sure you can identify and create a thesis statement that has a topic and an angle, an argument, or an assertion, right? If you just said, this essay is about puppies, that's not an angle. That's just the topic. We know the topic is puppies. What are you talking about? So instead, if your thesis was, oh, well, what I'm really writing about is how difficult it can be to find the right puppy following a good adoption process while avoiding puppy mills. Oh, that's completely different. That's what the paper's about. Completely different thesis statement, right? And maybe as you wrote the essay, that's what it turned into. That's why, again, go back to that idea of the working thesis. Once you finish the paper, is your thesis still the main idea of the whole paper? It might not. Tweak a little bit, change the thesis to where it actually does fit the entire essay now, right? And again, that's hard to do if you're too close to it. If you have someone else read it and then you say, what's my thesis statement? What's my main idea? They should be able to tell you, and you should say, yep, that's it. If they say something that's different, you might be, why are you confused? I thought this was my thesis statement. And then you can actually have a conversation about that. Not everyone has access to someone else that's willing to help them with that, though. Do all of my topic sentences and their units of support also have topics and angles? Do my topic sentences relate, right? So making sure that you're not writing three vastly different types of body paragraphs that are really for three different thesis statements, right? Making sure your topic sentences all relate to one another while still supporting the thesis statement. And then again, your topic sentences, it should be very clear that you have a topic and that you have an angle. You have something you're saying about that topic. So a terrible topic sentence using that dog example would be, there are many types of dogs to adopt. Really? Everybody knows that. If you've ever seen dogs, you've seen more than one, you know there's many types of them. Terrible topic sentence because there's no angle there. So during revision, maybe I say, oh, okay, well, in this paragraph, what I really wrote about was, although there are many types of dogs that you could adopt, certain breeds work best for certain types of people in certain types of situations. And then that paragraph will go through all these different types of people, all the different types of dogs that work best for them, all the different environments. If you have kids, if you don't have kids, if you have other pets, if you don't have any pets, all that stuff. Because as you're writing, those are the ideas that might come out of your head. But when you wrote the topic sentence, you didn't know you're going to write about all those things yet, possibly. Excuse me. And so you want to think about all of those like that. And it's again, it's hard to do it by yourself. That doesn't mean it's impossible. Okay. So it says here, one method that may help you answer these questions is to annotate your drafts and do a reverse outline. I'll annotate, it's just fancy for taking notes on the page. So, you know, if you print out your essay and you mark up the margins, you circle things, you underline things, you highlight them, you're annotating your own essay. So when you do that, you should be able to do what's called a reverse outline. Not to be confused, a reverse outline isn't a backwards outline. A reverse outline doesn't mean that you start with the conclusion and then end up with a thesis statement. Reverse outline simply means the essay itself already exists. You have already written the essay. So now you're actually working backwards because you're going to create an outline based on the essay itself. Some of you, if you were like me in high school, if you had to do an outline for an essay, it was part of the essay grade, you would write the essay first, and then you would make it an outline based on the essay and turn that in. That's actually a reverse outline. I'm sure some of you did that. I did it because I thought outlines were stupid and pointless and things like that. And it wasn't until later that I learned, oh, this is actually helpful. Maybe I should do it right. But a reverse outline is great for the revision process because what you're doing is you're reading through your essay and you're trying to be as critical as you can be going through all these different points, right? So thinking about all these different questions and then all of these questions as well, right? And so you're looking through your own essay, you're making notes on the essay, pointing out all of these. Are the ideas organized into categories or groups that make sense? Basically, does everything you talk about within a body paragraph make sense within that paragraph? Does it match up with the topic sentence, right? What about the order of them? Is this logical, right? Are there paragraphs that should be shifted to other locations? Maybe you wrote a paragraph and it was great, but then like 2 or 3 paragraphs later, you had another idea kind of related to that first paragraph, but you kept it down at the bottom of the essay. Well, maybe you should move that whole paragraph, right? And you can think about it logically, which one of these would fit best next to one. Should I read paragraph 1, then 2, then 3, then 4? Or after thinking about it some more, after analyzing what you actually wrote, should I move these things around? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. It just depends on what you're discovering about your own essay. And then is there an overall introduction, body, conclusion, structure, right? And for most of you, it's probably yes, it probably is. You clearly started with an introduction that included your thesis, and then you had all of your body paragraphs that had really good topic sentences, and then you had a conclusion paragraph, right? So most of you, I would say 98% of you, you're like, absolutely, I follow this format because I did my pre-writing, I did my free writing, I did my brainstorm, my mind map, then I did my idea matrix. So I kind of showed myself how to put these things into order, right? But if you didn't, like, again, carefully read your essay, making sure you did do this, right? Sometimes you think you wrote a complete introduction, but you didn't. You wrote half of an introduction, and then your first body paragraph was kind of like the second half of your introduction. And make sure if that's what you wanted to do, is it working? Or was that just a mistake? You didn't realize you did that, right? And then conclusion, did you actually conclude the essay? Or did you just kind of stop writing? Like, oh, I hit the page minimum and I'm going to stop writing right here. Well, that's not the end of an essay, right? You want to make sure you actually concluded the essay. And then does the introduction appropriately introduce the topic of the essay? That's funny, there's a typo, talking about revision. Does the introduction appropriately introduce the topic of the essay, interest the reader, and offer the main idea, right? Because it should do all three of these things, right? Introduce the topic. It should be clear the general idea, the general topic, or the general category, however you want to think about it, about what your essay is going to be about. It should be somewhat interesting, right? And again, what's interesting to one reader isn't always going to be interesting to another reader, but isn't interesting to a reader, right? If you have an audience in mind for the topic you're writing about, did you write the introduction in a way that would make them want to keep reading your essay, right? And then make sure you have your thesis statement, your main idea in the introduction, right? And then your conclusion. The thing you do want to make sure you do is make sure that main idea is restated, or make sure it's at least kind of reminding the reader about the main idea, right? And again, restate doesn't mean copy and paste. You can just reword your thesis statement, say the same thing in a slightly different way. And if you don't do this, it's not always the end of the world, but you also want to think about your readers as being a little stupid. And so to make sure they understood what your main point was through all those body paragraphs, all those body paragraphs they were reading, you might want to remind them in the conclusion, this is why you were reading all that stuff. And they go, oh yeah, I forgot, So it just helps. It also helps you kind of seal the deal to really make sure that you're concluding the essay by reminding yourself, I said my main idea at the beginning. I gave all these good paragraphs with examples about how to support that. And now I'm going back to, and this is what I talked about. So it's a good way mentally for the writer to actually make sure they're concluding the essay as well, right? So this is a good little video. You can watch this. It's basically what I'm going to show you right now, but you can watch this if you need to review it as well. So when you're doing a reverse outline, you're taking an essay, and this is just like an old example essay, and you're taking an essay like this, and then you're putting it backwards into outline form. So I have a spot for my thesis statement. I have a spot for my topic sentence. I have a spot for supporting details, and the same thing for every other body paragraph, right? So just something really simple like this. If you don't know how to use the bullet points, that's okay. Just make sure it's clear which ones you're talking about at which point. So my thesis statement, I'm gonna put it right here. Topic sentence 1, right here. And then just listing my supporting details here. Supporting details don't have to be complete sentences. It's just to make sure that you are able to pull out the information that you had in the essay. So if we look at this example essay. So having money influences self-esteem. When it comes to having a large amount of money or a large amount of friends, people have many different opinions. Many people would say that they much rather have more friends than money, but there are also some that say they would rather have money. Personally, I think it is better to have a large amount of money because you would then have no financial problems, could enjoy your free time a lot more, and you'd be able to buy anything that you wanted. And so just reading this introduction, it's pretty short, but it's all right. We're going to revise it. It's pretty clear to see that this is their thesis statement. They introduced the topic, and then they told us what their main idea is going to be. Personally, I think it is better to have a large amount of money because you would then have no financial problems, could enjoy your free time a lot more, and you would be able to buy anything that you wanted. Like, oh, that's my thesis right there. So I'm going to copy that and just put on my reverse outline. Yay. Then I keep going. So I'm looking at my first topic sentence. If I wrote in the way that most people write, this first thing should be the topic sentence. We'll find out if it's true or not. One reason it is better to have a substantial amount of money is because it would eliminate any financial problems. Money in our society today is a necessity. People in life would not make it without it. For example, if you have a large amount of money, you'll never have to worry about overdue bills that you could not pay. With a large amount of money, you could pay for things ahead of time and then not have to worry about them until the next one comes along. You would never have to worry about having that hospital bill hang over your head for years because you cannot afford to pay it at that time, or that credit card you had to use to be able to get your family food to put a good meal on the table because you had no money. Well, all of that would be gone, and a person would not have to worry anymore if they had a large amount of money. Also, you would have zero payments to pay. Life would be so much more simpler with no payments to pay. If you wanted to buy a car, you would go and pay your entire payment, so you had no worries. Many people would probably pay off their houses, pay off their children's, or even their own college debt. All in all, with a large amount of money, it would be a lot easier to eliminate any financial problems than it would be to do it with money, right? So I'm like, okay, I go back here. Is this the topic sentence? One reason it is better to have a substantial amount of money is because it would eliminate any financial problems. And we just read this paragraph, and the whole paragraph was about eliminating financial problems. So we're like, yep, that is my topic sentence. And it actually fits my paragraph. So I'm going to copy that and put that one right here. So I have my topic sentence here. Supporting details. Because this is written in a very simplistic way, it's easy to see what the details are because they have keywords like, for example, right? So we have overdue bills. I'm going to copy that, put it over here. What's my next one? With a large amount of money, you could pay for things ahead of time and then not have to worry about them until the next one comes along. That's still about bills, I guess. You wouldn't have to worry about having that hospital bill hang over you. So a very specific type of bill. So hospital bill, and I could put it right here, but because it kind of fits into this one, if I wanted to, I could kind of tree branch it out to that one. Either way, it doesn't really matter. And then we have credit card. And we talk about credit card in terms of the food. So credit card, and I could say food here if I wanted to. And then all that would be gone, have to worry anymore. Yeah, I guess I could put worry anymore. If I was writing this, I'd probably expand on how that eliminates worries a little bit more, but that's not this part of revision yet. Life would be simpler if you wanted to buy a car. So you could say, oh, worry more kind of goes with simpler, right? Let's say car. And I'm just putting all these little details that I've included here in this paragraph, right? Pay off houses, college debt. So I'm put houses and college debt in there. All in all, a large amount of money would be a lot easier to eliminate any financial problems than it would to do with no money. So just summarizing the paragraph there. So we have this, we have the thesis that was easy to find, we have the topic sentence that was easy to find, and then we have a number of supporting details. And so this is just a reverse outline based on the essay. And for you, you would just go through it and keep doing the same thing for every single paragraph, right? However many paragraphs you have another topic sentence, right? So if we have 4 body paragraphs, we'd have 4 topic sentences, most likely. It is possible you have a topic sentence that goes into a second paragraph, and that's okay too. So you just have one of these would be much longer than the other one. And then just all these types of things right here, right? The reason you do a reverse outline, well, one of the reasons you do the reverse outline is because now I can just look at this and not read a whole bunch of words to see if I'm actually writing about what I say that I wanted to write about. So I can easily read my thesis right here. I think it's better to have a large amount of money because you would then have no financial problems. You can enjoy your free time a lot more. You'd be able to buy anything that you wanted. Like, okay, by reading my thesis, it's pretty clear that my first point, my first topic is about financial problems. So my first topic sentence better talk about financial problems. So I read my topic sentence. One reason it's better to have a substantial amount of money is because it would eliminate any financial problems. Yay, I did exactly what I told my reader I was going to do. All right. Now, am I supporting the idea that having a lot of money would eliminate financial problems, right? Okay, I talked about it'd be nice to have no overdue bills. It'd be nice to be able to pay off any hospital bill. It'd be nice not to rely on a credit card to pay for food. It'd be nice not to worry anymore. It'd be simpler. And then we go back to items. We're like, well, wait a minute. These are specific things you could pay off with money, right? But then we have worry anymore. Life would be simpler, kind of buried in the middle. And then I go back to things you could buy with money or pay off with money, right? So here, this is actually in the wrong place. I can see it very clearly on my reverse outline. It shouldn't be here, right? Because it's not a thing you pay off with this large amount of cash, right? It's an effect of being able to pay off all these things with a large amount of cash. But it's thrown in here because this is when the writer thought about it. That doesn't mean it belongs there, right? So to make this have more of an impact, I would move it. I would say it's a good way to begin the paragraph. If I start my paragraph, one reason it's better to have substantial amount of money is because it would eliminate any financial problems. And then I had a brief conversation about how it would eliminate all these worries that I have and how life would be so much simpler. And then I provided specific details that support how it would make my life simpler. Now it's much better placed, right? But looking at it here, just on this outline, it's easy to see that because I'm only looking at a few short words and phrases. If I'm looking at the essay and I read this whole paragraph, I'm like, nope, sounds good to me, because it all does fit together, but it might be better organized if you look at it a little more closely. And that's one of the really good things about the reverse outline. It almost forces you to be able to see your essay with a fine-tooth comb. So you can much clearly see this type of organization and then rework it, right? This one, let's say you didn't want it here. You're like, well, I'm going to say this is still my topic sentence. And then I'm going to talk about all of these examples. And then I'm going to say, once I've paid off all that stuff and don't have to worry about all those bills anymore, I am now worry free. And that'll work too, right? Just not lodged in between all these specific things you could pay off or buy with the money, right? If you keep looking here, same thing. We got overdue bills, hospital bills. These are all events that have already happened, right? Buying a new car, buying a new house. These are new things or things you could do. College debt. Oh, that's already happened too. Well, college debt, this is really a bill too, isn't it? So if you're paying your student loans every time, it's going to go up here, right? So now we have overdue bills like the utilities or something like that, hospital bills, college bills, right? Paying off your student loans, things like that. Then having to use credit cards to pay for things like food. Or if you want to looking ahead, you can buy a car straight out, not worry about getting a loan. You could buy a house straight out, not worry about getting a loan. So these two fit together well, and these ones fit together well. So now you can just go through this. And when you revise, you say, okay, here's my reverse outline. I'm going to take all of these, go back to my essay, and organize it in that same way. So you literally take the same paragraph and move all the stuff around, and then reread it again to make sure that it's doing what you wanted it to do and that it's matching your reverse outline, right? And if you do this for every single paragraph in the essay, you will strengthen every single paragraph in your essay, right? But again, this is much easier to look at and organize than just reading the whole paragraph over and over and over again, right? And it sounds silly just moving around a few things like this, but this will make this paragraph so much more effective, right? Because it's not going to confuse the reader. It's a clear starting point. All the examples make sense. The different subcategories of examples make sense. And then, no more worries because I don't have to worry about all that stuff anymore. It's so nice. Life is so much simpler now, right? So it's a nice kind of ending for the paragraph as well. But doing these is going to make your paragraph better, as long as when you actually revise the paragraph, you follow the reverse outline that you already made. So you do all these first, and then just go back and do the revision part, right? So just keep repeating this. So if we had more and more paragraphs, we do the same thing, right? So the next one is, another reason it's better to have a substantial amount of money is because you will be able to sit back and actually enjoy your free time more. So I would just take that and plug it in here as topic sentence 2, right? And then I would go out and pull all my supporting details out just like I did up here, right? And then do the same thing for the next body paragraph, same thing for the next body paragraph, right? So for the reverse outline, you just have your thesis, topic sentence 1, supporting details, topic sentence 2, supporting details, repeat, repeat, repeat until you've hit every one of your body paragraphs, right? For a reverse outline, don't worry about the conclusion here because it's not going to help you a lot with the conclusion. It'll definitely help you a lot with your individual body paragraphs, though. All right. Any questions about this? Oh, I should check the chat. No, we're good. All right. So this, again, it's a really, really good way to revise. It's going to help make things much clearer for you, the writer. And it makes it easier to not have to rely on a peer review or something like that. Right. This I'll post after class. I'll probably put it right here above reverse outline, or I'll make it a link embedded right here in the assignment directions for the reverse outline. So this is the only assignment you have to do before Wednesday. So this reverse outline is due on Wednesday before class. So that's all in here. And then here, revision stage 2, there's some more information. All right. So we're talking about idea developing, right? So it starts out with reverse outlining. Not only helps you with idea structure, it can also help you analyze idea development to determine whether you have not enough or too much written in places in your essay. If you see multiple main ideas in one paragraph, for example, you may not have given each idea enough development. As you revise for idea development, make sure you have at least a paragraph, sometimes more, for each topic sentence idea. Make sure that you have developed your paragraphs and units of support with examples and details appropriate to your purpose and audience. And if I look at my reverse outline, with this example, I'm like, yep, I totally did. I have one clear main idea for the paragraph, and I have just enough specific supporting examples to help develop this idea, right? So when the reader is done reading this paragraph, once I revise it, they should walk away completely knowing exactly what I mean about how it's better to have a bunch of money because it eliminates financial problems, right? Should be no question in the reader's mind. You look at these ones, and again, this is kind of an unfair example. These are both body paragraphs, right? Let's say you started with this body paragraph, all right? Traveling to Tokyo was a revelation, especially when compared with traveling to New York City. While New Yorkers are actually polite as a group, New York is dirtier and transportation is less timely, and it's definitely not quiet. On the other hand, Tokyo is ultra modern in terms of transportation and services. Things run on time. For a large city, it's clean, quiet, and the citizens are polite. Now, this totally makes sense. This is a body paragraph. It has a topic sentence. It has some support, right? But there are so many things that could be improved here. So if I was doing a reverse outline for this, I would just have Tokyo was a revelation, especially when compared with traveling to New York City. That'd be my topic sentence, right? Then I'd talk about New Yorkers being polite, New York being dirtier, New York transportation less timely, right? Not quiet. And then I'd have Tokyo, ultra modern transportation, things run on time, it's clean and quiet, and the citizens are polite, right? So I have a lot of the same kind of things in here, and that's okay because if the people are the same in New York as they are in Tokyo, nothing wrong with that, right? But that's all. I've got no specific supporting details. These are just really broad examples right now. So then when you revise, if you've done a reverse outline, you'd see very quickly, oh, I don't have a whole lot to work with here. So you could revise it here, and all you're really doing is making sure that you're adding specific details so the reader can fully understand what you mean by comparing these two cities. So we have this one now. Traveling to Tokyo was a revelation, especially when compared with traveling to New York City. So the same topic sentence. First of all, Tokyo is ultra modern in terms of transportation and services. Coming into the airport, oh, we have a specific example coming up. We have a little story about the airport itself. So the airport is a good specific example about the modern transportation in Tokyo. So coming into the airport, we had the option of shipping our bags to our destination, thus avoiding the hassle of hauling luggage and allowing us to take inexpensive public transportation to our hotel. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. The airport train runs frequently, quickly, and on time. It actually leaves when it's supposed to leave. And the airport, as well as in other train stations, there's often a white gloved and uniformed conductor on the station platform to help travelers get to the right track, stand in the right place to board the train, and signal to the train conductor that all travelers have boarded so that the train can depart on time. So if you're reading through all of this and your only experience with trains is like New York City subways, these are very, very different, right? If you've ever used any other kind of transportation in like Philadelphia or something like that, they don't have people that are there to help you. you're on your own, right? If you get lost, tough luck. You're out of luck, right? Hope you can find your way back, right? So including these very specific details is really important when talking about comparing New York City transportation to Tokyo transportation. Because most of us haven't been to Tokyo. I've never been to Tokyo, right? So this is all news to me. The writer, they knew all this stuff because they went to Tokyo. But if they don't tell us, the reader, all these details, it's not effective, right? So again, really looking at what you've already said on the page and is this enough for my reader to understand what I'm talking about, right? Almost always, I would say like 99.9% of the time, you can add more specific details that'll make that paragraph stronger and that'll make it better for the reader to understand. And the rest of this paragraph does the same thing. I'm not going to read the whole paragraph to you, but just thinking about this kind of example. This is a really simple one. And again, there's nothing wrong with this paragraph. There's just a lot of stuff that it isn't doing, right? I would say if you write this paragraph in an essay in like 8th grade, yeah, you're right on track. But you want to write this one now, right? You're in college now. Write this paragraph. Don't write this one. The same main idea, same topic sentence, same basic pieces of support, way more specific details to support those things, right? So look at this. And again, it's kind of an unfair because it's such a stark difference. But even if you just add a couple of sentences of detail to each one of your body paragraphs, you're making your essay stronger. You're making each individual paragraph stronger and more supported, which is going to make the entire essay stronger and more supported, which in the end run is going to make your reader understand how you support your thesis very, very clearly, right? And with the more specific details, especially all the visual ones, you can see the differences as well. So I don't have to go to the Tokyo airport train to envision what it looks like because they talked about enough stuff there. And if you read the rest of the paragraph, they talk about a lot of stuff there. All right. And so it's a really good example to look at. And here it's basically saying all the stuff that I've said before. But then here is just a good little chart. All right. So these are good support. These are indicators of good support in a body paragraph. All right. So good support is relevant and focused. All right. It sticks to the point, which is kind of hard because some people, when you write, your mind kind of wanders off in a different direction and you kind of lose track of what you're actually supposed to be focusing on. Right. So make sure you do this, not this. Right. This is what happens when you let your mind wander too much when you're writing and you're not thinking in your head, okay, this is my topic sentence. Everything in this paragraph has to support this main idea, right? If you do that, it'll all be relevant and focused, right? Is it well developed, right? Or does it lack development, like this one up here, right? Well developed, not so well developed, right? Does it provide sufficient detail? Again, the example just now. The second one had plenty of sufficient detail. The first one, lacking detail, right? It is possible that you give too much detail. And so when I said earlier, you want to imagine your reader is kind of dumb. They're kind of dumb. They're not the stupidest person on the face of the planet, right? So if you're talking about pizza, you don't have to break into a 2-sentence definition of what pizza is, right? Your reader knows what pizza is. That would be an example of too much detail, right? But if you're talking about something that's very specific or the knowledge is only known by a very small percentage of the population, you might need a lot of details, right? If you're a chemist and you're writing a paper for other chemists, you don't probably have to have as many details as you would if you were talking to someone that wasn't a chemist, right? You might just confuse them, right? So again, think about that kind of imaginary audience that you're writing to, and that'll help you understand if you have that sweet spot in the middle of plenty of detail that really helps them understand your point, but not so much that they become bored reading it, right? And this is more about the style, right? Is it vivid and descriptive? And all these things mean, I'm sure you've had a teacher that said, when you write, you're just telling me about these things. I want you to show me these things. And what they mean is write all of your sentences in a way that with examples for support, especially that a reader that didn't have that experience could imagine having that experience, right? Whether it be positive, negative, happy, sad, whatever it is, make sure that you're writing in such a way that they can imagine being in your shoes, right? If I'm writing an essay about, how theme parks have become, dangerous murder playgrounds or something like that, and I'm trying to explain like how dangerous certain kinds of rides are, but I never really explain and describe these rides, it's not going to help, right? Just by saying that, every single one of you might have a different idea of the kind of ride I'm talking about, because I haven't given you enough details yet to know which ride I'm thinking about, right? And for me, the writer, that's a big no-no. I need some specific descriptive details so any reader could read that and say, oh, that's what he's talking about. Oh, I saw one of those kind of roller coasters at Darien Lake. Oh, and now you're also forming connections with your reader, right? Which is always a good thing. So be vivid, be descriptive, use descriptive language to try to describe the things you're talking about so your reader has a better understanding of what it is you're trying to tell them, right? Opposite, don't be vague and imprecise. Don't say, oh, there's a bunch of roller coasters. It can be really deadly. Anyway, no, way too vague. There's no precision there. Give me some good, vivid details, right? And then organization. And this goes back to both within the paragraph itself, just like we did here by moving these things around. That's internal body paragraph organization. And it could also be paragraph to paragraph, like I said at the top of the hour there. So looking at these ones, making sure that it makes sense logically from the introduction all the way through the body paragraphs into the conclusion. If something is off, out of the wrong place, move stuff around. You don't have to do it physically. You could just think about, okay, if I talked about this, and this, would that make more sense to the reader? Yeah, I think it would. So I better move around that stuff, right? Next one, is it coherent and consistent, right? Or does it seem disjointed? Meaning the ideas don't really clearly relate to one another. And this can happen if you don't do good pre-writing, if you don't already have an organizational idea in mind before you start to write the essay. Your essay can be kind of all over the map, right? And most of us have written an essay like this at some point because you weren't exactly sure what you were writing about. You weren't exactly sure where it was going. And so it kind of went in 15 different directions, right? Be able to recognize that you did that and then fix that to make sure it stays consistent, right? And then throughout the essay, if it's important, are you really highlighting key terms and ideas, right? Maybe you think you are, maybe you're really not, right? Maybe you brought up something, but you didn't emphasize it, right? If you finish writing the paper and then I finish reading it, I'm like, okay, well, you wrote about all that stuff, but I don't care about any of that stuff. And you say, oh, you don't care about X, Y, and Z? I'm like, oh, well, you wrote about it, but you didn't really say anything to make me care about it. You didn't highlight those key terms and ideas, right? And you just do this through language. You don't say, look at this one right here. This is my most important point, right? That's too obvious, right? But you would write about it in a way using all this stuff that the reader would definitely know, oh, this is really important, right? So even if they only read your essay once, if you gave them a quiz and you said, okay, what's my main idea? They should be able to tell you what your thesis statement is. If you say, what are my main supporting ideas? They should be able to tell you what every one of their topic sentences is, right? If they can't, you're probably not doing a good job of that, right? And so these, again, it's just a really handy little checklist to make sure that you're doing these. And it's hard to do them one at a time. So you want to kind of think about your sentences within the body paragraphs, doing all of these, right? So is it organized? Is it developed? Do I have good supportive details, enough details to make sure that they understand what I'm talking about? Is my writing coherent? Is it all fitting together paragraph to paragraph, right? And so you can think about these individually, but a lot of them you kind of do at the same time just to make your life a little bit easier. Right. This video I actually don't like a whole lot, so you don't have to watch that at all. And then the last one is the one, again, I said before that most people think of as revision, and it's really just a step in revision. So stage 3, sentences, words, the format, right? I'm not going to read through this, but you can look at some of these ones here. Are the sentences grammatically correct, right? And that's what most people check for first, right? If you're using Word, you look for all the squiggly lines and things like that. Is the sentence structure clear and varied? This one's a little bit tougher if you don't typically write with varied sentence structure. And at the very simplest, when you think about sentence structure, you don't want to begin sentences in the same way all the time, right? So if you think about the basics of a sentence, every sentence has a subject and a verb, right? That's one of the ways you know it's a complete sentence, subject and verb, right? But if I say, see Jane run, see Jane walk, see Jane eat, right? It's repetitive sentence structure because every one of them begins with see Jane doing whatever it is that she's doing, right? It's boring, it's repetitive, it's monotonous, right? What if I said, see Jane run, see Jane eat, smiling Jane is doing now, It varied the sentence structure. It's still a really stupid sentence, right? But it's varied enough that it's less boring than the previous version. So sometimes just moving around the subject and the verb, right? If you always start with the subject as one of the first words of the sentence, try to flip it around. Try to have the subject further on later down the sentence. People don't like doing that because it does open up the door for other grammatical errors, right? You're like, well, now that I flipped it, do I need a comma somewhere? I'm just going to leave it the way that it was before. No, take that risk, right? If it's more interesting, that is much more important than a comma missing here or there, right? Because you can always fix that during proofreading too. Is the language used clearly in a way that's appropriate to your reading audience? And again, this goes back to that imaginary audience, right? Everybody should have an imaginary audience that you're writing to, right? It's nobody specific. You're not writing a letter to your mom or your grandma or something like that. But imagine whatever topic and angle you've taken, who would want to read something about that, right? Or who do you want to read something about that? And then are you using your vocabulary in such a way that it's going to make sense to them? Is it appropriate for them, right? Going back to that chemist example, if I'm writing a conference paper where I'm talking about some new chemistry thing that I'm doing, I'm going to use a lot of very technical terms if I'm writing it for fellow chemists, right? If I'm doing it in order to teach a fifth grade class about science, I'm going to use very different words, right? Because they're fifth graders. They don't have the vocabulary that a chemist that has a doctoral in chemistry understands, right? So think about language and how you use it in terms of what you're writing about and in terms of who you're writing it for. And then punctuation, right? Usually the easiest one, right? All sentences end with punctuation. Make sure you got a period, question mark, exclamation point, whatever it is that you're using. And then the formatting, right? And for all of our essays, make sure you're doing it in MLA formatting. If you forgot, remember, you can go back into module, learning modules. And the getting started link here, remember, there's a little, one of them is about MLA formatting. So if you forget, and it's all the basic stuff most of you have been doing anyway, double spaced, Times New Roman font, 1-inch margins, all that kinds of stuff. A lot of you have asked me, so if you use sources, you didn't have to for this one, but if you did, remember, do your best to cite it properly. We'll go over in the next module of how to actually do that. But for now, just do the best that you can. Worst case scenario, you do it incorrectly. But if you never cite your sources, now you're plagiarizing. So better than plagiarizing is just getting the citations wrong. So if the best you can do is like put a little, hyperlink in it or something like that, that's fine. Don't put a 13-line hyperlink in there. If you read a web page, you could write the title of the web page next to the sentence. That'll be fine just now, right? And so all these are the pretty simple parts, right? It's all the little bitty nitpicky things, the grammar, the spelling, the sentence structure, citations if you had it, punctuation, all these types of things. But these are the things that most people do when they think they're revising. And again, if we go back to this one, it's the last thing, right? Because after you've identified your purpose, audience, thesis, topic, sentences, and idea order using the reverse outline, now you can see, okay, am I doing the things I need to do, or do I need to add stuff? Do I need to tweak stuff? Am I developing my ideas the way that I think I am, right? Once you've rewritten all that stuff through revision, now go and look at that last part, right? Don't do it now. Try to get out of the habit of doing it as you're actually typing, because it's going to be so much easier to just wait till the very end when all this stuff is done and then fix all those little bitty things, right? And you really should get in the habit of doing it this way. I guarantee it's going to make your life much easier, because the more you revise this way, the more you tend to write that way on a first draft. So if you end up taking like essay exams for a class and you have to write an essay for a test, like a final exam, the more you practice revision like this, the better you get at drafting like this. And ideally, we could all just write this way the first time, right? Sometimes it happens, but usually it doesn't. So you usually have to go back through and revise at some level, maybe a big revision, maybe just a little bit, right? But the more you practice this, the better you get at it, right? And so on here, that's the first 3 stages here. And these are really the bones of basic college writing. So understanding each of these aspects, how they work together, how to really do it for yourself on your own essays, it can be difficult. I understand that. So if you're really struggling with it, again, reach out to me. Some people are really good self-revisionists. Some people are really, really bad at it. And I understand that, right? So let me know if you need more help with that. Next time, we're going to talk about style, right? And style is really the hardest part because style is saying, well, what you wrote is correct. That does support the topic sentence. Could you write that better? And that's so vague sounding, like, good, but why don't you try a little harder? Like, well, in what aspect, right? How do I make it better? What's better? What do you mean better? Better for you, better for me? What kind of better are you talking about? So this is probably the hardest part of revision. But if you do these 3 stages and you do them well, it's going to be a lot easier to then revise the style of your writing. And again, with this, the more you practice, the better you get at it, right? So for today, all you have to do is go through your essay. And if I've commented on your essay one already, you can take my comments as aid for what you're doing, right? If you haven't submitted the essay yet, you're already falling behind. That's really going to hurt you for this one. So you want to get that done as soon as possible. But go through these, review them if you need to, start looking at your essay, and then start building that reverse outline, right? So remember, very simple, just like this, nothing super fancy, right? But you should very clearly see how you can improve your writing just by doing this reverse outline. So get this done first, and then go into the deeper stuff like these, right? All right. Any questions? All right. So as a reminder, that's module 2. Again, we're just looking at these ones today. We're going to cover these ones on Wednesday. So the only assignment you have due for Wednesday morning is just that reverse outline, right? If you're someone that you don't like typing, you're much better at handwriting something. If you handwrite a reverse outline, as long as it's legible, you could take a picture of it and just upload that here as well. So if you're a handwriting kind of person, do it that way, whatever works better for you, right? So you can definitely handwrite this if you want to. Me personally, I like clean digital stuff. I like bullet points and all that kinds of things. But I know not everyone's like me. So just make sure you do the reverse outline for Wednesday's class. And if you have questions, definitely reach out. Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment, but it's really petty.
Oh, go ahead.
The statement more simpler has bothered me since the very beginning. Also, whoever wrote that essay, I just kind of want to punch because yeah, of course it's ideal to have more money.
I mean, in all fairness, it was an English 099 class. So it's the class where it's like they really struggle. And then by the end, they just have to write like 5 paragraphs. But I like the example because the organization is there, but he definitely needs to proofread that essay.
Oh yeah, it was great for uses in class, but yeah,